Welcome back to the Sesame Spectacle podcast. It's your host, Neil.
I'm Sky.
And today, ladies and gentlemen, if you can hear that in the background, you hear a certain bird talking. We have a special guest here today. Um, this has been one we've been waiting for. I know a lot of fans have been asking, where's the Sesame Street Live talk? When are we going to talk Sesame Street Live? We love Sesame Place, but what about the live shows? We have finally made it, everybody, and we have a very special guest. He did the live shows back in the golden ages of the 90s. And when I say golden ages, I mean he's old. He's seasoned and he's a well-established performer and actor. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome you, Javon, to the podcast.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Neil and Sky. This is a pleasure and an honor, so I'm excited to be here. So thank
Of
you.
course, thanks for being on.
Of course, we are so happy to have you here. Now, everyone's probably going to be wondering, what did he do? Why is he here? Um, so we reached out to Javon because we found out he was friends. He performed as the biggest bird on Sesame Street, Big Bird, for 3 years on Sesame Street Live. He did two shows, and we're so thrilled to have him here on the podcast just to talk about his experiences and why he became a character performer. And, here's some stories that he might want to share with all of us and get some insight on how Sesame Street Live was in the 90s and the early 2000s as well. Um, First of all, thank you once again for coming on and taking the time to speak with us. Um, to just get this ball rolling, I'm curious to know, how did you get your start as a character performer? What led you to want to become, performing for people, not just in costumes, but outside of costumes as well?
Right. When I was little, I always wanted to be an actor and always found like acting on TV interesting. And so that was the first seed that planted this road. But then I remember being little and I remember going to see the actual first Muppet show live. And I was intrigued by the costumes and the shows. And then following that, Muppet Babies had come out, and I was like, wow, I was blown away. And I was like, I would really love to do that one day. And I was thinking, I can never do it. I don't know how to even get involved in it. Then my parents took me to see Sesame Street Live, and again, blown away. So it was just always something there. I can't explain it. I just always wanted to be a part of that. So then one day I went to one of the shows, and then I went up to Cindy Morgan. I'll never forget it. She was such a sweet lady. I love her. She was the performance director. I can't remember what Sesame Street show it was, but then I went up there and said, "Hey, how do somebody audition or get involved in the show?" And she explained that we have auditions when we're in the cities, but unfortunately, you missed your shot because this was in Cleveland, Ohio. She's like, "We've already had auditions here. We're going to have them in Canton, Ohio. And if you can make it there, we'll have you audition." So I found a way to get there and audition for her right on the stage. It was pretty cool because I saw the props and Oscar's can, and then behind me was the backdrop. It was a special moment. And auditioned, but didn't hear back for a whole year. So,
Wow.
so that was pretty. I thought, okay, well, they never did. They didn't want me. But yeah, like I said, just seeing how magical and colorful the show was, and the meaning, and the message behind it. That's what got me into it, basically.
Awesome, awesome. And what was your first show that you actually were able to perform?
My very first show,
Mhm.
it was in Wichita, Kansas. I think maybe after Christmas break. It was Elmo's coloring book. It's Big Bird, and yeah,
Now, was that in 97? Like when it first came out? Or.
mine was '98 because Michael, I believe his name was Michael Harrison. Forgive me for the last name, but he was the original Big Bird. He was like the OG Big Bird. He was like one of the greatest. Like I had some pretty big shoes to fill replacing him because for the longest time they actually kind of didn't want me because they would call out and say, "Well, do you want this person to play Big Bird?" And Cindy Morgan kept suggesting me, but they kept passing on me. I'm not really sure why. Then finally they were like, "Well, let's just give Javon a shot." So then they pulled me out in Wichita, Kansas, along with Corey was his name. He ended up replacing the Telly Monster, so he and I came in together, and we learned the show actually in a hotel ballroom. We rehearsed the show there. They taught it to us, and then our first show was in Wichita, Kansas. I can't remember the arena, but that was pretty awesome too. So,
So I'm assuming that like, the touring experience in general was new to you.
oh yeah,
What were you like as you were first getting into it with the cast, and do you remember like what you were looking forward to the most when you started? What was like the most exciting, that you had in mind?
yeah. The most exciting thing for me was uh, getting the scripts and getting a cassette tape. 'Cause that's how they did it back then. You got a script and a cassette tape, and you listen to it and you follow along with it to learn your lines and learn the
Yeah.
music. But honestly, was just putting on that costume because as a child looking out, I mean, looking at Big Bird from the crowd, looking at him come down the stage, I was blown away. And then knowing that, and sooner or later, I'm going to put that costume on and have see through Big Bird's point of view, all these kids taking pictures and yelling his name and screaming. I was like, to see that was amazing for me. So that's what I was more looking forward to doing,
Yeah.
and just getting to experience being up there and just performing in the show that I love so much. So
Oh, it's amazing.
Do you remember
yeah,
what that was like, that first show, or the first, that first experience seeing it from the other side?
um, I'll go back for the first time I got the phone call. Just was super exciting because like I wasn't home. Someone called and said, "Hey, Sesame Street Live called," and I'm like, "Are you serious?" And it was like, "Yeah." It was like, "Are you interested in doing it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Well, we told them we don't know." And I'm like, "Why would you tell them that?" So I was worried that they would go on to somebody else. But like a day or two later, I got back to them and said, "I'm totally interested." So they ended up sending me out the information, whatever. Um, the very first night, like I said, I didn't cry, but I was just super excited because, like I said, they used to hang Big Bird from because this is how you get into the costume. They hang him above you, and they have to lower it down onto you. And just having it lower down onto me and being able to smell the costume and seeing the costume and just hearing the crowd, and then the lights go out, and then you step out on stage and you see all the flashing lights, and again hear the screaming and the music. I'm hearing Big Bird's voice, and here I am bringing that costume to life. It's just, I don't know, it was an amazing feeling. I can never relive anything like that ever again, no matter what shows I do now, because it was just different. That was the very first time I ever got to perform in a costume in front of thousands of people. So it was pretty magical.
It sounds like you get to step into. I've always thought of it this way. It feels like you get to step into the fame of the character,
Oh
and
yeah.
then you get to just feel for that time period, like, you know, if this character was like a, sentient real being, like this must be what it would feel like, in that type of setting with so many people. And yeah, that's how you described it is how I like, sort of imagined it might be like.
Oh, you definitely feel famous at that moment as that character. And
Right.
when you would look down and say hello to a little kid, or you see their face light up, or oh, they look to their parents and say, "Oh, he waved at me," or they're up there dancing and trying to reach out and touch you. You definitely have a responsibility, one, to maintain that character's integrity and to just treat everybody as special as you can, and just acknowledge who you can. But it's a wonderful feeling that if anyone ever gets to experience, it's just awesome. So
Yeah, I can only imagine how that has to feel. I'm curious to know what was the hardest part of performing with Big Bird, especially with that long ramp. I know
well,
it took a lot of energy to do every night, but multiple times a day, if anything.
it did. The hardest part is like when they first teach you the show. Obviously, they teach you the choreography and you're blocking as yourself.
Mhm.
Um, the layout of the stage, you learn that, and then you're able to do it. You're able to do everything they need you to do. But as soon as they put those costumes on, the weight is different. The your vision is different, and it it could be pretty rough, but the hardest thing for me was getting used to the weight of the costumes. I think he weighed maybe 60, 70, maybe 80 pounds. I could be wrong. Um,
Big Bird.
yeah, Big Bird. Yeah. 'Cause yeah, but the hardest thing for I think a lot of us was doing the 3 show Saturday or 2 show
Three
Saturday where yeah, you might be familiar with this, Neil, where you do 3 shows in a day. I think it was like 10:30, maybe 4:30, 7:30. I can't remember the exact time,
my
but
tour like 10:30, um, 2 o'clock, and then
yeah, and then maybe 4:30 or
4,
something like that, right?
6 or something like that.
Yeah,
And then you got to load out that same night. You'd be like, wait,
later on that same night, which we didn't have to worry about. We were
right?
showering and back at the hotel, packing up. You may even have to leave that night to go to the next city, but I think that was the hardest challenge for me because I loved it. I loved getting to a new city. I couldn't wait to perform, but doing a lot of that choreography and wearing that costume 3 times in a row in one day, that was the most challenging for me.
Yeah, I would imagine too. Big Bird's probably one of the harder characters, just because there's less, there's less movement. There's no like neck movement. There's no, it's heavier. It's like feels like a probably more exhausting of the bunch.
I could move his neck. He had mobility left, right, up and down, but having to run because then and when I grow up, you have to run up the ramp, run off to stage right or stage left, grab a rope, and run back with the big old
With the big sign, yeah.
with the big sign when I grow
Mhm.
up, and it could be difficult to run in. He was heavy, or in Elmo's coloring book when I did the yellow polka, I had to actually hop and jump in him. That was troubling for me. All the choreography I had no problem with, but jumping in him was rough. But everyone always used to say that, oh, you got it easy. You don't have to dance if you don't want to, or your costume can breathe underneath you. But I'm like, it's still pretty heavy. I still get hot. But
Right.
I don't know if he was the most challenging. He might have been one of the most challenging, but then you had Snuffy, who I never got to tour with, which would have been awesome. But
Yeah.
yeah, they all came with their own challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just curious to know, did you perform any other characters like as an understudy or anything like that?
Um, no, I was hired when I first got hired. I actually wanted to play Cookie Monster, Bert and Ernie. I didn't have my eyes set on Big Bird because I didn't know there was a height range required to all of them. So, but when they told me I was playing Big Bird, I was like, awesome! I'm just got to be here. Um, no, I only played Big Bird in the Baby Dinosaur in Elmo's coloring book, which I kind of didn't like the Baby Dinosaur because he was just, but yeah, yep, there he is. That's who he was, the little baby dinosaur. He was cute, but for my time on Sesame, I only did Big Bird because of my height range, which kind of sucks. But again, I was just happy to be there.
Now, moving on from like almost coloring book because you did 2 shows. Can you give us like what like how it was going from one show to another as far as like months gaps and how was it learning a new show and getting to know your new cast members as well? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure not a lot of people came from one show to another all the time. Some people stayed on that show. I'm just curious to know like how was that transition to one show to another?
Right. Excuse me. For me, it was fairly easy. 'Cause like I said, when my first time I came out, I came to Wichita, Kansas, and we learned the show in a hotel banquet hall. And then I think you have like 2 months of break. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 months. Um, After saying, "Hey, I want to come back" or whatnot, and they say, "Okay, well, you're going to be coming back on this show on the West Coast or the East Coast." But the second time I came back for when I grow up, we we had 2 weeks production in Minnesota. I can't remember what part of Minnesota it was, but we actually did it in a dance studio this time. And some cast did return, some didn't. So now you're learning new personalities and whatnot. But it was fairly easy. You just start out with the opening number. They walk you through it or blocking, and then they start teaching you the choreography. But for the most part, it was an easy transition. Everyone's getting to know each other. I think we rehearsed like 8 hours a day for 2 weeks, with 2 days off or something like that. But yeah, pretty easy. Hope that answers your question. You might have to repeat it. Did I touch on the points you were interested in?
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna ask next. When you did when I grow up, did you do any roller skating at all, or was that mainly just the female Muppets doing it?
Thankfully, I did not do any roller skating, and I'm actually thankful that Sesame Street did not continue on ice because I would not have been able to be a part of it. I don't know how to ice skate or roller skate, so I did not have to do any roller skating. So it was fairly easy for me. Honestly, I heard that Big Bird didn't do a lot of dancing, so I could pick up choreography and dance, and I wanted to dance. So I learned the general choreography that they wanted us to learn, but then on the side, I would learn like the group numbers that I didn't have to dance in, but I was on stage. And I'm like, I want to learn that. So I would learn it on my own or ask questions. And so when I did that, Jerry, because when they were replacing Cindy Morgan with Jerry, he didn't know Big Bird, my Big Bird, liked to dance. So he watched the show and he's like, "Oh, you're dancing?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, because Big Bird normally don't dance, but if you want to dance, you can do it." So yeah, so that was fun for me to try to do on my own. I mean, that's a little side topic thing.
Now, do you have a specific favorite character that you didn't perform? Like maybe like Cookie. Like, I know you mentioned Cookie earlier in Bert and Ernie. But is there another character on one of these shows you would have loved to have taken a crack at, helping out and perform with?
I would have loved to have done Cookie Monster because honestly, Cookie Monster was the lightest out of everybody. Like he, from his design and his weight, but I would have loved to have done Cookie Monster because he was just kind of like the fun, goofy one, kind of like the hip hop, guy, or
Hmm.
and just the way he moved would have been fun. I would have loved to have played Telly Monster too. Um, like I said, when I first auditioned, I would have loved to have played Bert and Ernie, but again, my height wouldn't allow it. So, but yeah, Cookie Monster and Telly Monster would have been my favorites to try and portray. So,
Yeah, Telly Monster is one of my favorite characters. Every time I see him on the live shows, he's always getting down, grooving, and it continues on still today, especially at Sesame Place. He still has the moves and
right.
keeping that integrity and spirit alive. Um, but yeah, that's just amazing.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Like if I were to be at one of the shows or a park and perform, like I always think the same thing. I'd always love to be Ernie just because that's just what I'd envisioned. But from what I know, you have to be pretty short. Um, and I'm already short, and I've never I've never been too tall for anything. But I guess yeah, Ernie has to be pretty small. Um,
Yeah, I don't know their height ranges from the smallest to the tallest, but it always I never understood because the understudies they were able to play Telly Monster and Cookie Monster, but then also play Big Bird. And I even brought that up one day. I was like, wait a second, if they can do that, why can't I just jump into Cookie Monster and learn
yeah,
him? And they were like, nah, you're 6'2", you can't do it. And I'm like, okay, but I didn't want to push it.
yeah. Do you remember like having had both experiences of the two separate shows? Was the one that you just preferred more, that you had more fun with, or that you missed doing the most, or what of those two shows do you think back and miss the most?
I would say it would be When I Grow Up. Um, just just because Big Bird had a lot to do in that story.
Yeah.
Um, and and it's just the music. I just had more fun doing that show. Not that I didn't have fun doing Elmo's Coloring Book, but
Right.
I remember seeing When I Grew Up. That's why it was more special because Elmo's Coloring Book wasn't out when I was going to see it. So I saw When I Grow Up when I was a kid, and now to get
Oh
a chance
wow.
to perform it, it's 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 one of the reasons why it's so special to me because I
Yeah.
saw it as a child, and now here I am living out that experience that I never thought I would get a chance to do. So it would definitely be When I Grow Up, and I missed it. I'm sad that I didn't return the following year to do it again. But and another reason why I love it is because at the end of the show, I think I can't remember the name of the song. Was the song? What is it? What were we gonna say, Neil? Yes, they sing that to Big Bird to encourage him and let him know you're just as important to this pageant as we are. And that's a song that they sang at Jim Henson's memorial. So to do that show, yeah, that was my favorite show to do.
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite numbers from that show because, like you said, going back to Jim Henson's Memorial, I remember seeing that video on YouTube and then seeing that they did it on the live show. It just made me emotional because how much that song meant to me watching
Oh,
it from that YouTube video.
absolutely.
And it's such a beautiful song, and the fact that they included it in the show as like the number right before the finale, it was just
Yep.
beautifully done, and how they encouraged Big Bird, like, hey, you can find out what you want to be, and then he ends up being the director of the pageant, and it was just so beautiful. And I do listen to this version often a lot because I'm like some big Muppet fan, and I love the way that V did the music for these shows because not only did they keep the integrity, but they also gave it a little bit more Broadway feels, which is what they were trying to do.
Right.
Shows because it was most of these kids' first quote unquote Broadway experience. That's what Sesame Street Live was, and the energy, of course, was unmatched, and the music was so near and dear to me growing up, and just listening to these renditions of these classic Sesame Street songs. Such a highlight, such a highlight. It's so great to hear you say that because that's one of my favorite moments in that show. Because it's a little bit of a down part seeing Big Bird, upset, he doesn't know what he wants to do. Um,
Right.
just have all his friends around him come together and say, hey, we're here for you and we can help you find out what you want to be. And it's such a simple topic. It's so small, but it's the little things that matter.
Right.
You never know what child in the audience that's going through something like that.
And that's what I loved about Sesame Street was the messages that one, it takes everybody to make the world go around. As generic as that sounds, it takes everybody, and the messages are always positive and inclusive, and just letting everybody know that you are special. You may not be the shining star in the front, but like Big Bird and When I Grow Up, he was helping everybody else figure out what they was doing. So him helping them helped them to shine. So he essentially shines himself. And
Yeah,
just the messages, like I said, the messages of teaching children that one, everybody's important. Two, you can grow up to be whatever you want. And just to follow your heart. That's what I loved about Sesame Street in general. So yeah.
yeah.
I mean, honestly, and actually, uh, our last show of the tour, like the tour was done, when they sang that song, I did cry in the costume. I actually had to stop for a minute, and I'm wiping my tears from my face. You can kind of see it in the video that Big Bird pauses for a second because I was actually crying because, like I said, I heard the song that they sung for Jim's memorial, and now they're singing it to Big Bird. This is my last time touring with Sesame Street. I didn't know if I would get a chance to return. So yeah, When I Grow Up has a special place in my heart. So
Now, one thing I kind of want to get into is the costumes, like how they.
mhm.
What was your first reaction of seeing the bird costume? Because seeing these pictures, it's so accurate. Like
Oh
it's
yeah, he looks so good.
it's just it's amazing looking at the
Here's
picture.
the thing, like for me, because when we were in production, I think two shows would be rehearsing at the same time. So when we were on break, they were like, "Hey, you guys want to come to the next city and see us rehearsing all that?" And we were all excited to see that. And I would see the other costumes, and I'm like, "They're not as cute as mine." But yeah, I'm weird like that. But when I first saw Big Bird, I was just, I don't know, it was just I was speechless, and then at the same time, I was just excited. And I remember just like gently touching his fur and then looking into his eyes to emotionally connect with the character. I know that sounds weird, but I would just look into his eyes and I would rub his beak, and then just, I would be excited but scared because here I am taking on a challenge that I've never experienced. Like I never was taught how to do puppet work. I was never taught how to dance inside of a character except in rehearsal. So I was nervous but excited, and just when I touched his feathers and touched him, I felt calm. I felt peace a little bit, and like I said, they lowered him down on me for the first time, I was like, here it goes. It's all or nothing. And I was like, I was not going to let anything stop me from playing Big Bird. I said at that very moment, even though that wasn't the character I wanted to play,
Mhm.
it's the responsibility and the character I'm playing now. And I connected with him. And from that moment, it was beautiful. I mean, I wish I could describe more how I felt, but I don't know.
I think it's I think that's such a unique experience for like an actor. I mean, I think actors in general always have to at some point, find the connection they have with the character they're playing. And I think to have a situation like that where you can come face to face with the character you're going to become, that's such a unique moment. And I'm curious, did you do like did you look into like Carol Spinney or do any character studies or anything of Big Bird before you were doing it, or did you trust that you knew the character well enough? I'm curious, like, how do you, as an actor, how do you prepare for that type of acting role?
Right. Yeah, I definitely did that because, like I said, I grew up watching Sesame Street, so I was
Right.
familiar with Big Bird and his physical movement. But yeah, I definitely watched. I believe they even may have had us watch um, some of Sesame Street, the TV show with Carol Spinney, and then they may have had us watch the performers who had already been doing it. And
Okay.
then from there, you just kind of get the costume on and start physically moving around and just trusting yourself. I mean, it's weird because you have to kind of move like a character outside of costume, so that could be weird to some people. But then when you put the costume on, it's a whole different story. But yeah, I definitely uh, watched how Carol Spinney would walk in Big Bird. I would
Mm.
look at how he would move, and uh, I studied up on him a little bit, but not too much. Like I said, I grew up watching Sesame Street, and I've seen all the
Yeah, yeah.
shows, so that wasn't too challenging for me. The only thing Neil touched on was the ramp. The ramp sometimes could be steep. So as Big Bird walking down, I had to try to lean back so that I don't walk too fast. There were some cities where the ramp would be long, and then some cities where it's super short and then it's steep.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a challenge. But
Did you
yeah,
ever
I
fall?
definitely yeah, make sure I didn't fall off. So that was scary because there was one time Jerry was like, "You got close to the edge." And I'm like, "Oh my god!" But yeah. Um, like I said, looking into Big Bird's eyes face to face, being able to touch him and look at him, that
Mhm.
most people will never get that experience. Like I said, it connected me to him, and I
Yeah.
loved it. I loved every moment of it being on tour. So
Next question I will have for you is, now you mentioned one of your favorite like numbers and When I Grow Up, but do you have a particular favorite number in almost coloring book?
it's hard to recall all of the music, but I definitely love the opening song. Uh, 'Cause
Mhm.
that's when everyone's out there together, and it's just up tempo and fast and fun. Um, Well, I do like True Colors. That was a pretty cool song to sing to the polar bear. I can't remember her name.
Blanche. Blanche.
Blanche, yes. People would think Yellow Polka would be my favorite, but it was not my favorite song to do. Well, like I said, he was heavy, and I tried to get out of jumping, and I even asked the performance director Jerry. I was like, "Well, can all the other Muppets just jump? You had to do like the polka and hop or whatnot." And like I said, he was heavy. He's like, "Nah, you got to do other choreography." But um, I think the opening number would be my favorite, and then True Colors being my second number before. So, I mean, I love Charlie Tut, but obviously Big Bird left at that moment because I would be backstage dancing to that or see that choreography, and I'm like, God, I wish I was out there doing that. But Charlie Tut was awesome, but I wasn't a part of that scene, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it was such a fun number to watch,
yeah.
man.
Oh, I take
Um,
that back. I liked the jazz number, but I can't remember the name of the song that
the
we did.
jazz.
Wasn't like there's a jazz breakdown, but I can't remember the number because then after all the
Oh,
Muppets.
talking about the scene where Oscar turned white.
Yes,
So yes, when you guys were singing Sunny, they were singing the Grouch song. Then they went to Sunny Days. Then they did that big jazz break. Yeah, I remember that. That was
yeah.
pretty cool.
That was fun to do. 'Cause,
Yeah.
again, that was a moment where they didn't want me to dance, but then when they saw me do it, they were like, "Yeah, you can do it." So that was a fun number. But yeah.
Oh man, have you met any of like the Muppeteers? Would they ever like come to the shows and watch you guys perform or anything like that?
No, unfortunately, I never got to experience that. I guess some of the earlier productions did, and even maybe a year before I went out, that happened because, like I said, they would rehearse actually in. I remember what part of Minnesota they would rehearse in, where they would come out and visit them, or if they were played in New York City, they would come out and see them, or they would go to the set of the actual Sesame Street
Hmm.
show. Closest thing I got, which is pretty awesome, is that Jim Henson's daughter invited us to her house to have dinner and hang out. So that was
Oh wow.
awesome.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's the closest I got. Yeah, that's the closest I got to the family, or any of the puppeteers. So yeah.
Now, out of all the shows that you did not perform in, do you have a particular favorite that you saw throughout the years?
Um, I wanted to be a Muppet Baby so bad. I wanted to be Gonzo. That's from Muppet Babies anyway. I love doing the Muppet Babies. I mean, not doing the Muppet Babies. I would have loved to have performed the Muppet Babies. As far as Sesame Street goes, I'm trying to remember all the ones I've seen. 'Cause I've seen One, Two, Three, Imagine, Let's Be Friends. Off the top of my head, they're all equally good, but I can't say that there's one I would have loved to perform in at the
Okay.
moment. Yeah, because like I said, they all inspired me to want to do it. But
Mm.
yeah.
I gotta go back to that the dinner you mentioned with Jim Henson's daughter. How did that happen? What was that like? What was that experience?
I can't remember what city we was in. I apologize if I can't recall the cities and the day and all that because that was such a long time ago. I think we were in town. I think she was lived in the same city, and I don't know if she came to the show or if she reached out and said, "Hey, I know you guys are in town, so if your cast wants to come over and have dinner and just talk about whatever, they're invited to do that." I'm not sure if someone on tour knew her or if one of our
Mhm.
promoters knew her. I wish I could remember her name. Heather comes to mind, but I don't think that was her. Could be mistaken. Um, but yeah, she just invited us over, and we went over and they cooked dinner, and we got to talk to her. And I felt I was nervous because I didn't know what to talk about because I was still kind of new. I didn't know if I could ask her about her father or ask her about certain things, or if
Right.
she got tired of people asking her those things. So I tried to keep it light and just talk about life at that moment. Or sometimes I was just nervous to talk to her at all. But yeah, so that was a pretty good experience.
Yeah, because I mean, at that time, it wasn't, you know, that wasn't even 10 years after Jim Henson passed away too. So that was still relatively early on.
Yeah, I do remember like letting her know that I was excited to like be a part of her father's legacy, and it was an honor to meet her, and thankful that she invited us over, and just letting her know that we appreciate her and what her family has done. But yeah, I
Right.
definitely didn't want to bring up her father because I didn't know what I was shy, so but
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was a special moment. So
Now, moving on to another topic, you toured in Mexico. Um,
yeah.
how was it learning? I mean, obviously it's the same show that you were performing, but how different was it trying to maneuver through a different language? Um, and how was that experience going internationally, quote unquote, and performing with these friends in a different language? And what were the challenges of it, like, dancing and trying to sync to a Spanish track?
Right. Um, Overall, the music and the choreography didn't change. So you knew when you heard the music, you knew what choreography you would be doing with that music. I remember coming into one of the arenas and they let us know because actually tour was almost supposed to be over and they extended it. We were supposed to close the tour in another city. Then they said, "Well, nope, we're closing in Mexico." But they brought us all in and they played the track, and so we had to like kind of uh, mech through our lines, but a few of the Muppets sounded similar, so we didn't know who was speaking. We didn't know if it was Big Bird, if it was Bert or Cookie Monster, so that was challenging. And I believe the night we did the performance, I don't know if I was making to Big Bird or if I was making to Grover, but so we did have to learn it in Spanish. It was challenging. And then, like I said, the choreography and the music didn't change. So once they started it, we were all able to kind of figure out who we were and who was speaking and how to do the choreography. But again, the only challenging part was trying to figure out who was speaking because again, the voices weren't distinct like they are in English. You know, like I said,
Yeah.
they were deeper. They would speak longer. You know what I'm saying? Like Big Bird can say, "Hey, welcome to Sesame Street," but in Spanish, it may take him a little longer. So that was the only challenging thing for me. Also, just being in Mexico because you had to get a passport and all that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Did you have a favorite like venue that you performed at, or like any area you remember, any stage
I'm gonna say
that
my
stood out to
favorite
you?
was I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, just was there any like stage or venue that like stood out to you the most when you were touring?
Um, Well, my favorite would be performing in the convention center in downtown Cleveland, Ohio, because that's where I went to go see the show.
Oh
So for
yeah,
me to
yeah.
go back home and be on that stage, that's going to be my favorite out of all of them. Honestly, when you go from city to city, they kind of all look the same.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I felt that.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Um, So no particular venue. I mean, Nashville was cool, but again, for me, just being on that stage was home. No matter what city we went to or venue, I loved it, and just being out there was just special for me, and that was my happy place. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was awesome to be able to go to different cities, but unfortunately, none of them kind of stood out to me. Well, I'll take that back. Hawaii was awesome. That being able to play in
Oh
Hawaii for
man,
2 weeks, that was pretty cool.
that's cool.
I remember seeing some like behind the scenes footage. It's still on YouTube somewhere. Of the 2000 and it was actually 2000s cast. I think it was a Big Bird Sunny Day Campout cast.
Yes.
But it's just all over YouTube of them just in Hawaii hanging out, chilling. I find it fascinating. That's the only like quote unquote behind the scenes footage you can really find of like cast just hanging out and having a good time. Was there anybody like that on your tour, like that was ahead of the game, trying to like film everything with like a camcorder back then, or was everyone pretty much just living in the moment?
Um, I would say everyone was living in the moment. Like, I mean, obviously, people were taking a ton of pictures back then. So, and I have some pictures. I can share some with you later. But I want to say Randy, he played Professor Art. I think at one point he did have a camcorder, but I'm not sure how long it lasts. Because it's traveling. You got to keep it small and you got to keep it light
Yeah,
going from city to city. But if you start accumulating all these different, items from different cities, your luggage is going to be heavy. You won't be able to pack it all. But we
Right.
were all just in the moment and just taking pictures with the little instant cameras, or maybe Polaroids at the time. But yeah, for me, I was just in the moment. We just take pictures with whatever. So I
Did
wish
you
I
ever
had
get
a
a
camcorder to record.
did you
Go
ever get
ahead.
a chance to like to watch back any of your your performances?
I did. I got to watch back Elmo's Coloring Book and When I Grow Up, and like every person who performs says, and I agree. When you watch yourself, you can't stand it. You look at yourself and
Yep.
say, "Oh, I should have did that better," or "Oh, I missed that turn," or
Yeah.
I should have done this or that. Because like I said, when I watch back When I Grow Up, Big Bird freezes because I'm in that suit crying because like I said, it's the end of the tour. But yeah, I watched back a few of them. And you also learn that way too, because then you can say, okay, I need to stand up straight, or I need to
Right. Right.
be more emotional in that scene, or I could have done that better. But yeah, it's always better to watch yourself, no matter what. It
mhm.
does suck, but yeah, I got a chance to watch myself, learn and critique
Yeah.
for better performances.
And it's funny that you're mentioning these tapes because I've been preaching to this audience that these tapes exist because record the performances to help the performers like improve and certain things like that. So I'm glad you proven that that was a thing because a lot of the fans were like, if that was true, it would have been out by now. And I'm like, well, they kind of can't just release it
Right.
because of like NDAs back then. Just word of mouth, like, hey, just don't put that out. I
It's
feel
also
like
different. The process of digitizing can get like really complicated too. So
especially
Right.
those.
'Cause like I said,
Yeah,
the tapes do exist. They were for educational purposes only. They weren't for the media, or they weren't for home viewing. They were for us to learn, or they were for to teach you guys. Say if you guys was the next cast coming out learning that show, you'd watch that tape, or they would reference back to that tape to say, "Oh, Neil as Telly Monsters was standing on your right, or he was standing over there, or here's how to do the choreography." So it wasn't really meant for the public,
right.
but they do exist. So yeah.
I don't know if you know, but last year, either I don't know if somebody just accidentally put this up or whatever, but the entire rehearsal CD of 1, 2, 3 Imagine came about on eBay. So
Hmm.
brought it up and they put it right up on YouTube for everybody to listen to. Um,
Okay.
so that's one like thing from the past that actually has resurfaced. I'm sure eventually, as time goes on, stuff like that will probably come up about on these marketplaces. Um, do you still listen to any of your old rehearsal cassettes just to think about memories, or do you just don't even go back and
Unfortunately, when I learned it, they were cassette tapes. So you had to have your Walkman out on tour with you, because that's what I did. I got a Walkman and I listened to it at the airport. But I don't have the cassette player anymore. And going back to the videotapes, we had to have watch them on VCR. So they were transferred from VCR to VCR. And like Sky said, it's hard to do it to digitize them. But no, I don't listen to them anymore. I just look back at the pictures, or I sent you guys a picture of my tour jacket. Sometime in the wintertime, honestly, when it gets cold here in Florida, I'll still wear my Sesame Street Live tour jacket. One, because I earned it. Two, it's freaking awesome,
yeah,
and I'm proud of that. So yeah, I'm going to wear that. Because some people ask me, "Well, why do you still wear your jacket?" Why not? So, but
right?
yeah, I don't have the cassette recorder, so I can't listen to them anymore. But I still have them. I keep them. I've kept all my itineraries from city to city. So yeah, it's still a special place. Unfortunately, I just can't listen to them anymore because I don't have a cassette player. I remember them selling Big Bird's Sunny Day Campout, and I believe that was the whole soundtrack of the show, right? It just wasn't the music, right?
It was the soundtrack. Yeah, it was just the cassette version. Yeah, I posted it recently.
Okay.
Found it on eBay.
Yeah.
I've heard that they made cassette versions of it. Recently, somebody sent me a screen grab of, I think it was When I Grow Up, but it was from '93 and it had like the birthday finale on it. Um,
I remember the birthday finale. We did that. I remember that.
I want to ask you about that. I never listened to it. I want to know how it is. How was it performing now?
That was pretty cool. Like I remember them bringing us in and saying, "Okay, they added this moment to the show, and we had to learn some extra choreography, extra blocking, and a new, song and dialogue." Um, like I said, it's not too challenging. They give you the script, they give you the audio, and they play it, and you just listen to it and you follow along to the script and what your character has to do and say. It was a lot of fun. I just remember that at the end of the show, we're all so tired, and then we strike that last pose, and normally the curtain will close, but not this time. The curtain stays open. I'm not sure if Big Bird or Elmo initiated the Happy Birthday song, so then you start dancing again and start singing along to the birthday thing. And at the moment, you're tired, but looking back at it, you're getting to do something that so many people dream of and
Yeah.
want to do. But it was fun. I completely forgot about that birthday. I don't even remember how long it lasts. I don't know if it lasts like 2 weeks or a month. I don't remember.
Yeah, there
Thanks
was
for
some
bringing that
shows
up.
that had it, and they will do it. They wouldn't do it long. I
Yeah,
know, like a couple of weeks they would do it, and then they'll be gone. Which I never understood why they did that. Um, but I can't wait till it can resurface because I'm really interested to see how it sounded and also looked. Because I've heard some good things about it. Um,
yeah. I
people,
can't remember the choreography and staging as far. I'm sure someone has it. I don't have it, but somebody definitely has it because I'm sure it was filmed. I just don't remember on our tour it was filmed. I want to say, do you have the information? Was it Elmo's coloring book when we did the birthday, or was it When I Grow Up? Can't
I
remember.
so the picture that I saw, it was from the '93 version. Um,
Okay.
all of them had it, at least for the most part of the '90s. but I think they started it out with the '93 edition of Coloring Book,
Okay.
or it could have been started in '92 with the remount of the original show. Um, Where's the Birdie? I
Okay.
believe it's the one that started it all. Um, but speaking of other shows, have you ever seen Silly Dancing at all?
Um, 'Cause I was talking to my friend Matt Hurley, who you've spoken to, Neil, and we were going over shows that we've seen. I believe I did see Silly Dancing, because I was trying to recount all the shows I've seen, but
Mhm.
I believe I did see Silly Dancing.
But yeah, what are you up to now? What are you doing as a actor? Are you still acting? Are you still performing for?
I'm not acting so much anymore. Well, I am and I'm not, but I've been with Disney for about 23 years now. So I actually left Sesame Street Live, took a break, and then got hired on with Disney because so many of those performers at Disney went on to do Sesame Street Live, and that's how I met them. I have not stopped performing at 40, almost 49 years old. So
Amazing. Speaking of 40s, I've heard a little rumor about a particular performer back in the day who was around 40 playing Cookie Monster. Um, I heard he was a very talented individual. Can you like elaborate or expand on that?
if it's who I'm thinking of, his name was Frankie. He performed Cookie Monster. I think he was probably 40 or in his late 40s. He may have even left when he was 50. Could be wrong, but yeah, it's he was an awesome guy. Very high energetic, an awesome Cookie Monster. Just the characterization was there, and yeah, I mean his age didn't show because I think a lot of us were in our 20s or late 20s.
Mhm.
But yeah, he was able to keep up with the younger kids. His age is just a number, you know.
Right.
Well, it's
Absolutely.
just a number, but
Hmm.
it takes a lot to physically move those costumes. 'Cause like I said, you got the heavy shoes on, the whole body of the costume, and little visibility. But yeah, I believe his name. Well, I know his name. His name was Frankie, but that's the only one that I know that was kind of older and out there still doing it. And he took care of business. He handled it very well.
As he should. That is great.
Yeah.
Um, Next question I have for you. We're coming towards the end of the episode. Um, what advice do you have to future performers who want to help portray these characters, not just in the live shows, but like theme parks like Sesame Place, SeaWorld? What advice do you have for them, and um, what they can possibly look forward to, you know, by portraying these characters?
Right. I think the first thing I would say is go after it. A lot of times, even now, a lot of us feel we have to be prepared. And sometimes you're never going to be fully prepared, you know, to be in a position to go after something. So, one, go after it, take it serious, listen. And if you can, if it's a character that you're portraying, try to study up on it. That way, you know a lot about that character. That way, you're portraying that character accurately. Um, have fun, and just be in the moment. Because a lot of times I'll be on tour and I'm out there and I'm in the moment, but it happens so fast that sometimes I feel like I missed stuff because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't taking the moment to just soak it all in, um, and just have fun. You know what I'm saying? And don't be afraid to go after it either. So that would be the advice I can give to people. You know, and just mentally, emotionally, and physically be ready to do it because it is tough. You know, it's not easy, but if it's something that you want to do, I just say go after it.
That's such good advice. Such good advice. They're listening, and they're definitely gonna appreciate that advice from
Yeah.
amazing legend like yourself. Scott, you have anything you want to add on?
Oh yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, if there's is there any way that Sesame Street in general is like still a part of your life today? Is there anything you've taken from it, or anything that's sort of anything that's like still with you now?
Um, but like I said, I'm still performing, so being able to take the experience of because that was my very first gig ever. Like I said, I've never performed everywhere. Sesame Street Live was my very first gig, so they did take a big chance on me. So just um, being professional and just like I said, keeping the character integrity and respect for the character, even though they're fictional, they're still very important to people's lives. They're important to me. So I'm gonna have respect for those characters and performance. So I take away just you know having love and respect for the craft. And like I said, I still wear my Sesame Street Live jacket today to honor what I did, to respect what I did, and just to hold on to something so magical. So that way I don't forget about it and just think, oh, that was something I did years ago. I still think about it to this day, you know what I'm saying? And I see friends sometimes who I've toured with, and we relive old funny stories. So yeah, I'll never let it go, you know? So
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate everything you have done in the past with Sesame Street Live, and we really look forward to what you have in the future as far as performing wise and everything like that. I would love to see video of your work. Matt, he told me a few characters that you help out at Disney, and I really want to see you in action as those characters and see how you are doing as a performer now. Um, we really thank you for coming onto this podcast and just talking to us a little bit about your history with Vee Corporation and everything. Before we sign off, do you have anything you want to talk about? Let people know what you have coming up, or anything you want to promote?
I don't have anything to promote right now. Like I said, I'm just keeping busy at Disney. I'm so thankful for you guys um, giving me a chance to talk about it. It's so weird because just like a couple of months ago, I'm like, I did Sesame Street Live, but I'm like, does anybody care anymore? Is there anybody who's interested? And I was like, probably not. And then Matt told me about you guys, and I was like, oh, so there are people out there that still, you know, want to see it and want to hear about it and stuff like that. So thank you for this opportunity. I just hope that I was able to share some stuff that was interesting to you guys.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
like I said, I have more pictures that I'll send you, Neil. I'll take some and send them to you. But overall, I'm just trucking along. So yeah. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Oh, we thank you so much for coming on and speaking to us. Um, well, everybody, we have reached the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Neil,
I'm Sky.
and that's Javon. And thank you all for watching, and thank you so much. Be on the lookout for more future episodes. We are coming, and we will be talking more about Sesame Street Live for sure, as well as Sesame Place. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Thank you. Bye, guys.